I thought I found my match in Mark, but when I unadded him on Snap, he ghosted me instead. I knew I was bad at responding, he said, and I felt gutted when he ignored my texts. Did I ruin my chance with a potential soulmate over my anxiety? Now I'm left questioning everything. I am currently interviewing for a job in my hometown. I am in the final stage, and it seems extremely likely that I will be getting the position and moving back home. This change is greatly needed, as a year ago I was laid off the week my company relocated me across the country, and I had no support system or personal connections. I have been trying to get back on my feet since then. Even if I do not secure this position, I am only focusing on opportunities that are either there or remote so I can go home. Because of these factors, I believed it was acceptable to start talking and dating via Hinge about 3 weeks ago. I have rarely used dating apps, as I was in a relationship for 12 years and engaged. We broke up 2 years ago and sold our house last year before my move. I have dated very little in real life, mostly encountering failed talking stages or men using me to be the other woman. After being on the app again for about a week, I received a rose from someone named Mark. He was 34, my type physically, and had listed many of my interests. As I mentioned, I am typically used to being the other woman with men around my age. If they are single, they tend to be between 21 and 28. I matched back and we started chatting over the weekend for a few days. It was honestly just perfect, easy, and positive. I was upfront about not being local yet, and he was okay with that, happy to start slowly with a foundation for the future. We even discussed him being my date for the wedding at the end of May. By the end of the weekend, he requested to move our conversations to phone or Snapchat. I am an avid user of Snapchat, but I primarily use it for wholesome purposes. I have moved around a lot, and I enjoy sharing that with family and friends. However, because I was hurt deeply by two married men on Snapchat, I typically do not keep men that I have not known for a long time, that are not family, or who do not interact with me in a way I approve of. Still, I gave him both since I was hopeful because we were connecting so well. He sent me a Snapchat immediately and we began talking there. We stayed up all night texting until 5 in the morning until he had to go to bed to prepare for work. Since I am currently unemployed, my sleep schedule is irregular. I had just completed another panel interview that morning, so I stayed up, had my interview, and then went to sleep. However, before Mark went to bed, he stated, "I will text you in the morning." I asked if he meant on my phone, and he confirmed. Him having my number while I did not have his made me anxious. Yes, I have anxious attachment, and I am already in therapy and working on my master's in psychology. When I woke up later in the day around 3 p.m., I did not have a text, but I did have two Snapchats from him. I responded as soon as I could, fearing he thought I was uninterested. However, he did not reply. Not until the following day, when he responded on Snapchat despite my attempts to initiate conversation. The next day, he sent a Snapchat and 3 messages in total, even though I was asking questions and trying to elicit responses. The following day, I received a snap to start a streak, but no replies to any of my messages or Snapchats. Everything remained unopened. The same pattern occurred the next day, and I felt my anxious attachment being triggered, so I thought I needed to devise a plan. I decided that if he did not message or interact with me the next day, I would take the loss and remove him before I became too upset. So I sent a morning Snapchat the next day and left it unopened. Then I messaged him on Hinge stating, "Maybe you lost interest, maybe it is not a good time, maybe you have a roster, all of which is okay, but I will not keep men on my Snapchat that are not interacting with me. You have my number if you would like to keep connecting like we were, but if not, I wish you the best." Then I removed him. Within minutes, I received a message back on Hinge from him asking why I had removed him and requesting that I add him back. There was no apology, just a more casual whoops. I added him back and we discussed expectations. I communicated my reasoning and he admitted he knew he was poor at responding. He found it attractive that I spoke up and confronted him about it. He claimed he would improve. For the next 2 days, it felt like how our conversations initially began, and I felt confident that he was someone special for me. Then on Thursday, he went out with friends during the day and got drunk all night. Communication was inconsistent, but I expected that since he had informed me he was going out. I was not his girlfriend, so he did not owe me anything. But he returned home around 10 and started texting me frantically on Snapchat. He still had not used my phone number, despite us knowing each other for about 2 weeks. Since he was intoxicated, he wanted to engage in a more provocative conversation. I indicated that I would entertain some of it to get to know him better, but that I would not participate in anything since I was not his girlfriend, and those interactions are perks of being in a relationship with me. He was very complimentary of my boundaries, repeatedly mentioning how attractive he found me for setting terms in our communication and ensuring we were both invested. He expressed gratitude that I continued to make an effort with him because he felt I was significant to him. We communicated wonderfully, and I felt flattered all night. Eventually, he did text my number that night with some provocative photos, which seemed unusual to me since that is typically the opposite behavior on Snapchat. I have an iPhone while he has an Android, and I noticed that when I replied, there were no delivered notifications, even though that appears when I text others with the same setup. Ultimately, we ended our conversation and I felt confident that I was on track to find my person. The next day, I did not hear from him until nightfall, and it was again on Snapchat when he wanted to resume the provocative conversation. His exact request was, "Can I talk to you while I finish?" And then we could spend the night on the phone discussing us. It seemed harmless, so I agreed. He called and we began chatting, but within a minute he hung up. I called back, but it did not go through. Perhaps it was a Google number that only functioned one way. Eventually, he called back and explained that his dog had walked in, which had caused the interruption. We started talking again, but I inquired about his phone. I never lie and always express what is on my mind to prevent resentment from building. He laughed and insisted it was a normal phone. I started to speak again, but less than 2 minutes into our conversation, he hung up again. I called back twice, and on both occasions the calls went through but eventually went to his full voicemail. I texted his phone and Snapchat with what I thought was a cute message like, "I can't wait to talk to you once you're finished," to see how it turned out. However, I received no reply for hours. Nothing was opened, no texts, and no calls. I felt genuinely hurt. Then I fell asleep, and when I woke up, the same situation persisted, which made me increasingly concerned. I messaged again, expressing that I felt hurt, sad, and worried. Not until 7 p.m. did I get a response saying he had just woken up. I did not believe him or feel reassured. I do not drink, so I let it slide and tried to match his vibes to control my anxiety. He did not apologize or check in on me, which annoyed me. However, over the last 3 days, he had been leaving me on read again. I woke up today with the same resolve. If he did not respond, I would remove him permanently because this situation did not feel healthy and I could not focus on him. He did not respond, so I removed him again and messaged him on Hinge, saying essentially the same thing I did the first time, though I became a bit sassier since he mentioned he liked that. I said a fan could remain a fan on my public profile. And guess what? He messaged back on Hinge almost immediately, explaining he had been working and had a reunion. I was quite upset, to be honest. I replied stating, "Funny you can respond to me here but not on Snapchat, which you insisted on using. It does not feel good when I invest in you and do not receive the same effort in return." Thinking we were going to have a conversation and believing he understood that I wanted our communication on our phones, I still wanted to converse with him. But I received a message that said Akiyu followed by a removal from our match. That was not what I wanted. I simply wanted to refrain from using Snapchat, which was driving me crazy, and hopefully gain some consistency in our communication. I texted his number with my response trying to convey those thoughts, but I do not know if it went through or not. I genuinely liked him a lot. The way we discussed the future was so aligned. However, his actions were not matching my expectations, but since we were still so new to each other, I had not conveyed that yet. I did not want to come off as crazy or scare him away, but I also value myself and will not let someone walk all over me. I believe that intoxicated words reflect sober thoughts, so I place significant value on those conversations. Therefore, I am seeking advice on whether this situation is salvageable. He is unlikely to reappear on Hinge. The more I reflect on it, the more I think I lost a potential partner because of my anxiety related to Snapchat. Looking back, I would not have given it out until we were more established. Should I add him back on Snapchat? What are some alternatives that will not make me seem irrational? Did I make a mistake, or did I handle the situation correctly? Story 2. I moved in with my 31-year-old girlfriend, but now I'm questioning everything. You know you can do way better than her, right? And I feel like I've settled, haunt me. With her chronic health issues and our constant fighting, am I doomed to regret wasting my 20s? I am 26 years old and male. I move around frequently for my job, earn a good income, and plan to relocate to Chicago by the end of the decade. That being said, I have been dating this woman who is 31 years old for a year and a half, and I truly enjoy her company. We have formed a strong bond. I moved in with her to her condominium after my lease ended last April. Around September or October, I will have to travel to Memphis, Tennessee for work, which will be a significant transition for me. However, I have been experiencing a sense of unease regarding our relationship, and I need to determine whether I am a terrible person or simply doing what I need to do. To begin, while her age does not concern me, since I prefer older women, she is all partied out and no longer enjoys going out or being spontaneous. In contrast, I still do. Deep down, I have always wanted a girlfriend with whom I could go out and socialize, but she seems to be past that stage in her life. Additionally, she has had considerable experience with romantic partners in the past and apparently had a lively college life. I cannot relate. I was an engineering student who struggled with mathematics and spent most of my time at the library. I was also too depressed and anxious to really socialize. However, I wanted to experience that aspect of life. After graduating, I came out of my shell and began attracting a lot of women's attention, feeling as though I would finally have the opportunity to enjoy life. Unfortunately, that was when I met my current girlfriend. Initially, we dated until she started asking me when we could become official. Feeling pressured, I ended the relationship. I had never encountered such pressure before to make a commitment, and I had recently broken up with my previous girlfriend, leaving me feeling emotionally exhausted. Thus, jumping into another relationship felt like a poor choice. The primary reason for our initial breakup was that my feelings of affection, attraction, and desire for her did not match the intensity I had felt for my last girlfriend. I believed I understood what love truly felt like. When my lease was up, I needed a place to live, and I began to think I might have made a hasty decision by not giving her another chance. Since we have been living together, I would say we have been quite happy. Nonetheless, beyond what I have already mentioned, there are other issues that concern me. For one, she is very financially constrained, earning only $19,000 a year. I do not judge her, the economy is tough and life is challenging. She works as a graphic designer, a field that does not pay well. It is frustrating that I have to cover nearly all expenses, which diverts my income, which I would prefer to save, towards groceries, my cat's medication. Since my cat does not get along with her, fuel, meals, furniture, and practically everything else, apart from the one-third of the mortgage she pays herself. I contribute more financially to help her save. I always imagine being with a woman who earns more than $19,000 a year. I would prefer a partner whose income is close to, equal to, or greater than mine. For those who may wonder, I do not want children or to get married. We do our best to share household chores equally. I appreciate the idea of women having enough financial resources to do what they want and take control of their own lives. While I do not blame her for her situation, it is nonetheless less than ideal. Second, she is undiagnosed as being on the autism spectrum and has diagnosed attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I do not mind the attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, as every woman I have enjoyed dating has had it, but combined with her autism, it affects our relationship more than she likely realizes. At times, it can be awkward in public when she misses social cues, and some of my friends do not particularly like her. When I share my passions with her, she often stares blankly at me. I value all experiences and can appreciate the significance in most activities, travel destinations, cities to visit, and so forth. Meanwhile, she tends to be very set in her ways and fixations. One of my favorite activities with my previous girlfriend was analyzing movies, discussing their meanings, and trying to understand the director's intentions. However, with my current girlfriend, it usually turns into short responses like, uh-huh or yeah. Individuals on the autism spectrum often struggle to pick up on or interpret subliminal meanings, which is core to who I am. Furthermore, she experiences intense episodes of anger related to her autism, and she requires white noise to sleep. One night, I was abruptly awakened when she smashed a box fan into pieces at 3 a.m. in a fit of rage. On another occasion, I entered our bedroom while she was asleep and turned on the bathroom light to prepare for bed. When I climbed into bed, she was awake and on her phone, which I overlooked. She then turned up the volume exceptionally high, which I had not initially noticed. She was trying to retaliate against me for waking her. When that did not achieve her desired effect, she threw a cup of water on me, stormed out of the bedroom, and had a panic attack on the couch. It is somewhat terrifying to witness a 31-year-old woman behave like a 9-year-old boy. Third, she suffers from back arthritis, herniated discs, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, depression, and anxiety. This combination of chronic conditions limits our ability to participate in normal physical activities. Cycling, swimming, running, and long-distance travel are all off-limits due primarily to her back issues and postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. I am very adventurous. I have climbed mountains in Poland and Colombia and partied in the streets of Amsterdam. Unfortunately, I will not be able to engage in those activities with her, which is disappointing and not her fault. Additionally, I do not want to get married at all, as it is a personal choice. However, my current girlfriend feels she almost needs to marry me for health insurance reasons and became very concerned when I first disclosed my reluctance to marry. I do not like the pressure of feeling obligated to marry someone for them to obtain health care. I get the impression that she hopes I will change my mind. Fourth, one would never expect us to be a couple based on appearances. I must tread carefully when discussing the next point, as it may sound unkind. I am a tall, slim, athletic man who has been told I am conventionally attractive. When I was single, I went to a bar in Brooklyn, and women approached me without any effort on my part. I have been informed that this is quite rare. I have also been in relationships with very conventionally attractive women before. I know who I can attract in terms of beauty. Meanwhile, my girlfriend, who is tall but considered obese, has unconventional proportions and is covered in cellulite. I realize this may sound harsh, but I find her attractive. We have been together for a year and a half, and I understand that I am not the issue in that regard, nor is she. Society has a problem with it. On two separate occasions, women have approached me with my girlfriend beside me and remarked, "You know you could do much better than her, right?" Sometimes I notice people looking at us in public, whispering or laughing. Both my friends and my mother have privately expressed surprise at her appearance, often saying things like, "You can do better, bro." This situation makes both of us feel miserable. I think deep down I have always felt that she is out of my league, but in a negative way. Lastly, we do argue frequently. While not to a problematic degree, we definitely argue more than a typical couple, in my opinion. Of course, I am often to blame for most of these disputes, as is characteristic of many heterosexual relationships. However, some arguments often arise from her coping skills related to autism, financial issues, and our age difference. In conclusion, I cannot emphasize enough how much I like and love her. I would say that none of the issues I have listed above are particularly significant to me. Rather, it is the accumulation of all five factors simultaneously, 24/7, that weighs on me. I firmly believe that I care the least about our perceived appearances and her health conditions. Nevertheless, the combination of these factors leads me to feel that I should end this relationship sooner rather than later to avoid further pain down the road. I have this persistent feeling that I have settled and that I regret it. It feels as though I am wasting my 20s and that I met this person too soon. I need assistance in determining what course of action to take. Please feel free to share any thoughts, comments, questions, stories, anecdotes, advice, or criticism. Summary: am I meant to stay with this individual and risk feeling worse in the future while wasting both of our time and emotions? Or should I break up with her for the reasons I have stated and risk losing someone with whom I am compatible?